Hello, lords and ladies! Welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. And today that means 2 new episodes of Adventure Time. More specifically, the first 2 parts of the Stakes miniseries. Since part 1 leaves off on a cliffhanger, I decided to lessen my workload by combining both episodes into one video. So, the Stakes miniseries is probably something many Adventure Time fans have been waiting for, because it's supposedly going to shine a lot of light on Marceline, which is ironic given episode 6 cliffhanger. Now, at first, the opening to episode 6 kind of confused me, as I thought it was a flashback due to Marceline's shorter haircut, but after a few minutes of confusion, I was fine. The decision by Marceline to cure herself of vampirism honestly seemed a bit sudden to me. I guess she finally gotten tired of not being able to handle sunlight.
SPF 10 million. I have exactly enough to reach my umbrella.
It turns out that Princess Bubblegum has the means to cure Marceline, but it has an unforeseen side effect. One that initially looks like Marceline going around sucking the blood from the local livestock, which drives the villagers to a riot. Now, from past episodes, I believe that Marceline only sucks the red out of objects and doesn't directly drink any blood, so I was a tad bit confused when it looked like she had done that. But what happens in the end of episode 7 shines some more light on that. While episode 6 leaves off on a cliffhanger, episode 7 is mostly a hodgepodge of moments from Marceline's past. The one with Simon, aka Ice King, really wasn't that enlightening, as we are only shown him leaving Marceline. The interesting flashbacks involve Marceline's mother.
Let's go in the garden. You'll find something waiting right there where you left it, lying upside down.
Although we only get a brief look. I think this is our first look at her mother, unless that was briefly shown in a previous season that I had somehow missed. We don't get a name or anything more than that, so we'll hopefully see more information on her mom later in the series. But what's even more interesting is how Marceline gained many of her vampire powers. It seems that when she would slay a vampire, she'd be able to gain their abilities. Now, I don't know if this was revealed in any previous seasons. Like I said, I did miss out on most of 5 and 6. So, and maybe it was previously stated in 1 through 4, and I'm just forgetting it. I don't know. One such vampire she stole the abilities from was known as the Moon, and apparently was referenced in this episode as being slain. And apparently this actual fight was in the Adventure Time 2015 Spooktacular comic book, which was released in October. Now, I haven't read it myself, but for any Adventure Time fans who haven't already delved into the assortment of Adventure Time comic books, I highly suggest you do, as it seems that some of them are indeed canon. Now, we also get to meet some human characters. From chatter online, I'm seeing that this is seemingly confirming that there are a large number of humans that still exist on other continents, as episode 7 shows them befriending Marceline after a brief misunderstanding, but then later getting off the continent due to some big changes coming. I'm kind of hoping that we'll get to see and visit this plot point later in the future. Oh, and that revelation at the end is already making the Stakes miniseries an already great story right off the bat. Back to a human-demon hybrid, Marceline being cured has apparently returned the vampire she absorbed to undead life.
What the heck is this?
Things are gonna get good. It was just such an amazing 2 episodes. I was actually worried it wouldn't live up to all the hype it's been getting online, but so far that doesn't seem to be the case with these first 2 parts. When this show first started, it was usually just random episodes with events sometimes referenced in later episodes. But I think the show has slowly started heading in the opposite direction. At least that's what I feel, considering that they wrote this whole Stakes miniseries into the middle of the season. Marceline reverting back into a human-demon hybrid is already a huge shakeup for the series. But are you hoping to see any other big revelations in future episodes? Anyways, as I said, this was a really great start to the miniseries. More information on Marceline has been a long time coming, after seasons of slowly trickling information. Since this miniseries is mostly about Marceline, I don't really expect the other characters to play huge roles, but I'm still hoping to get some memorable moments out of Jake, Finn, PB. Because Jake is currently with the Vampire King and his minions, I think it'd be interesting to see him be turned, considering his fear of vampires, which has apparently returned. What did you think of these 2 episodes? Let me know in the comments below, and also tell me what your hopes are for this story. Thanks for watching. Take care. Hello, lords and ladies. My name is Archaic King. This is Cartoon Hangout, a segment devoted to all things cartoon. Today I've got another 2 reviews of the Adventure Time Stakes miniseries lined up for your viewing pleasure. First off, we've got episode 8, Vamps About, which picks up from where the previous episode left off. With Marceline cured of her vampirism, the Court of Vampires has returned. Now, that's not their official name or anything. I'm just dubbing them that because it's Batman reference, and I have no idea what their group name is. Well, the vampires in this episode are mostly ones we've already met in the previous parts. We are introduced to 2 we hadn't seen, namely the Moon and the Empress, the former of which was shown in a comic book. To sidetrack slightly, the members of this vampire court are named after tarot cards, which is actually quite clever. Not much is actually done in this episode, but we do finally learn, although we probably suspected, that the Vampire King is the one who turned Marceline as a last-ditch effort to save his species.
Wait!
I almost feel sympathetic for him because Marceline wiping out an entire species does seem pretty harsh, but I'm sure the reasons for doing so will be revealed sooner rather than later. The conflict with the Court of Vampires seems almost video game-esque in concept. Each of the members split off to rebuild their army or pursue their own goals in various sections of Ooo. Now, I'm not sure if they've each gone their own way and aren't aligned with the Vampire King anymore, because after Hierophant made it clear he was pissed with the king, it almost seemed like everyone else did the same. As I said, it seems very much like a video game where Marceline, and maybe the others, will have to track and take down each member of the court until they face the Vampire King in a final confrontation in the last 2 parts. I do want to point out that each member of the Vampire Court has their own unique design, which is something Adventure Time does very well. No one character looks identical to another. Then again, when you don't have the use of many human characters, you get creative with the designs of the characters you do have. Speaking of designs, I didn't point this out before because I'd forgotten to mention it, but I do love how Marceline and Bubblegum constantly change their hairstyles. Most cartoons pick one design for a character, and they never go off model, never really change unless a plot point calls for it. And yet in the past few parts, we've seen Marceline sport at least 3 very different and unique hairstyles that almost symbolize who she is during that part of her life. The first hairstyle she rocks, chronologically, is when she's still a young girl with her mother. It's just a short, innocent haircut for a kid. Next we see her with Simon, and she's got longer hair in pigtails. She's a bit older now, but the pigtails still denote an air of innocence. Despite the cruel world she now resides in, she's still being protected by Simon. This reminds me of the video game The Walking Dead from Telltale Games. In it, Clementine has long hair, but towards the end of Season 1, she gets it cut short so zombies can't grab it. She's grown up a bit, and the cutting of hair could symbolize that. After this moment, the next we see Marceline, she's much older and has, well, I have no idea what in the world kind of hairstyle it is, but it's an interesting one. It's a bit more edgy or something you'd only really see on a teenager these days, maybe. There's not a lot of hair to work with in this haircut, so it could symbolize her having a mission to do and not being able to really take the time to care for it. But as you can see, it's still tied off in a ponytail. She's still clinging onto that innocence, her childhood. By the time she meets more human survivors, you can see that while part of her hair is shaved off, it is growing back. She's nearing the end of her mission, and maybe this could show that she has some hope left in her, especially since she finally makes some new friends. Flash forward some more, and now her hair has grown back, and look at that. Her pigtails are back as well. The only vampires left are the Vampire King and some of his remaining minions. The mission is almost done, and she's thinking about what she's going to do next. Despite her friends getting ready to leave, she probably feels like she can either convince them to stay, or she can leave with them. And in present day, she's got a short bob cut, similar to what she wore at one point as a kid. At this point in her life, the haircut probably symbolizes that she's ready to grow up and is tired of being an immortal. She even says it in the first episode of the miniseries, how she got turned when she was young and how she's finally ready to grow up. In fact, the voice actress of Marceline even confirmed about a year ago that she believed Marceline has a Peter Pan complex. She never wanted to grow up, and she hung around kids, but when they even had a hint of growing up, she would ditch them. I just spent a long time talking about hair, which might make you think I'm talking out of my butt. However, a person's hair can tell you a lot about them as a person. Now, I was planning to have 2 episodes reviewed in this one video, but because it took up a lot of real estate talking about the symbolism of haircuts, I'm going to just do episode 9's review in a separate video. It's a little bit more work for me because if I have a hard time talking about episode 9, it'd be so much easier adding it to the end of this video. Anyway, how about you let me know in the comments what you thought of the episode, and do you agree with what I said about the evolution of Marceline's hairstyles, or do you think I'm looking too deep into it? Thanks for watching, and take care.
Okay, there was one that looked like if a baby snake was a baby. Nah, that's not right. There was another one that looked like if an anthill were a girl. Nah, that's not right.
Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout for my review of Empress Eyes, Part 4 of the ongoing Adventure Time Stakes miniseries. I know I went overboard with the analysis machine in the previous review, but I assure you, there's not much to overanalyze this time. Now, as we learned at the end of episode 8, Marceline is off to save Simon from the Empress, who turns out has hypnotic powers. Seriously, am I the only one who thought the gem was her eye? Turns out she hides her actual eyes under her hair. I suppose that makes sense. If your powers lie within your eyes, you'd best keep them hidden, or you'd be using them constantly. I figured since Ice King appeared in the new intro, he would play some part in the mini, besides just flashbacks, and I was right. It looks like after leaving Marceline, he ended up as a thrall to the Empress. In fact, Simon is part of the reason why Marceline hunts vampires. She felt like she was protecting him, and the last of humankind. See, I mentioned in the previous review we'd likely see why she was out to exterminate an entire species, and here it is. With humans no longer as well protected as they once were, vampires thought they'd have the run of the place. Can you only imagine what the land of Ooo would be like if Marceline hadn't staked them all? Oh, and Ice King doesn't end up back under the Empress's power, because guess what? He's too dumb. He's simply too thick to be hypnotized.
You're not even hypnotized. At all.
Them gigantic sparkly orbs of yours can hypnotize an ear clop.
So you're not.
No.
That's really funny. It's also really nice to see that even though he can't remember his history with Marceline, he still refuses to kill her. Although that probably has to do with not being under the vampire spell more than anything. I'm beginning to wonder if maybe at the end of this miniseries we'll see Simon return, or at least begin to. I mentioned earlier how maybe Marceline not being a vampire anymore would be the big change that comes out of this story, but I get the feeling she might have to sacrifice her humanity again to defeat the Vampire King. Either way, I'm hoping there's some major status quo changes by the end of the series, whether it's Marceline remaining vampire-free, or the beginning of the return of Simon. So far, this entire miniseries has been aces. Great story, great character development, it's just an all-around good series. This is immensely better than the snippets of Marceline and Simon's past we've gotten before. And with 8 episodes in this miniseries, we have plenty of room to get more information. We're already halfway into Stakes, so I wonder how much backstory is left. I can't wait for tonight's episodes so I can review them tomorrow. Sorry, I'm just really pumped. It's been a little hard on me, workload-wise, to do reviews for 2 episodes every day on top of doing my daily Let's Plays, but when I'm sitting here watching the shows and writing, I'm having the time of my life. I hope that comes across in the reviews themselves. Well, that's the end of this review. Let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. I look forward to reading them. Thanks for watching. Take care. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. That means I've got another 2 Adventure Time reviews coming your way today. Luckily tomorrow is the last 2 episodes of the Stakes miniseries, so I'll be able to relax a bit more. I just need to get through today and tomorrow. So May I Come In is the 5th part in the Stakes miniseries currently airing. Marceline and the others are making quick work of the Court of Vampires. To be fair, the Fool was easily dispatched, so he probably shouldn't count. Either way, that means it's Hierophant's turn this episode. Now, this episode is purely in the present and didn't feature any reveals or flashbacks that I noticed. It did have the return of LSP, who only slightly manages to help the others.
Let's do it.
I do have to ask what she was doing sleeping in some bushes, though. I love the character and enjoyed her joining in on the vampire fun. Not sure if she'll stay with the group through the rest of the mini, but one can hope. It seems that Hierophant is an honest-to-goodness old-fashioned vampire, and this ended up being his demise when he was pushed into the Jake house and died. It was a pretty grisly way to go. Now I'll be honest and say I think this was likely the weakest episode this season, and of this miniseries especially. Not because there weren't any flashbacks, it just didn't have that pizzazz that the other episodes did. Barely anything did get done, and Hierophant seemed to go down much quicker than the Empress. Sure, he did turn into various creatures and put up a slightly good fight, but having Crunchy take him down by accident was a little weak in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, it was funny, but not the epic takedown I thought the character deserved. We did get to see Jake finally step up and be a bit more brave than he has been acting in recent episodes, but that was only because of Peppermint Butler's timely text. He would have probably hid longer if it weren't for him. Anyway, that's been my review. Let me know how you felt about the episode in the comments below. Make sure to tune in soon for more Adventure Time Stakes reviews. Take care. Hello, lords and ladies. Welcome back to Cartoon Hangout for another Adventure Time review. Take Her Back was such a creepy episode, mostly because of the moon. Up until this episode, Marceline made her seem like a pushover. A healing pushover, to be fair, but oh no. The moon is by far the scariest of the Court of Vamps we've seen. That voice, man. That voice.
You run in the path of my light. That's her voice?
Anyway, in the previous episode, Marceline ends up getting poisoned due to her not having healing powers anymore. And we end up getting a pretty emotional scene where Princess Bubblegum blames herself for her own hubris. Now, while LSP says some pretty harsh things during this moment too, I do ultimately end up agreeing with her. While PB isn't a bad person necessarily, she does end up being quite full of it most of the time. She believes her science can conquer anything, which is ironic considering how prominent magic seems to be in the land of Ooo. Hopefully this adventure teaches her a thing or two. In my last review I said May I Come In was the weakest episode of the miniseries. Good thing then that the following episode was a step back up. We got some very hilarious moments, mostly from Jake and his fear of vampires, not to mention some very trippy poison dreams being experienced by Marceline. As much time as I spent talking about the symbolism of Marceline's hair a couple of reviews ago, I don't know where to begin analyzing her dreams. In each of her dreams, she seems to be getting older and older, and the first dream looks like it has a young Simon in it? I don't even know, man. I don't even know. This was definitely a much better episode, although I will say the progression has slowed down considerably since the first couple of parts. With War of the Vampires now slain, hopefully the next two parts of the Stakes miniseries will bring it in terms of story and action. But how about you guys let me know what you thought of the episode. Thanks for watching, and take care. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout for the conclusion of the Stakes miniseries. Since these last two episodes really work best as one, I'll be combining my reviews into one video again. Alright, let's get started. Part 7, Checkmate, wasn't what I thought it would be coming from the previous two episodes. Instead of coming to attack Marceline, the Vampire King instead wants to call a truce and have his vampire juice sucked from him. Sounds like a good night, right? Now, I believed him when he said this, so watching everyone attack him got annoying, but luckily Marceline realized that they needed to break the vicious cycle that they've been in for hundreds of years. It's not every day you see a villain pretty much give up and refuse to fight. I think that says a lot about the Vampire King. What's more interesting is that once he's free of the vampirism, he becomes a lion.
Kitty!
Best makeover ever!
So, was this what he was before being bitten? Just some lion? I feel like we could have gotten a better explanation of that, but then again, none of the other members of the Court of Vampires were given any kind of backstories. I almost want to say this was meant to be a tiny reference to Aslan the Lion from Chronicles of Narnia, except in that story he's meant to be God, so I doubt there's any connection there. While not quite the epic fight I pictured, we do get a somewhat epic finale to this miniseries. After accidentally spilling VK's essence, it becomes this smoke monster and starts destroying everything. I don't think at that point it was the Vampire King anymore. I know Marceline treats it as such, but I think she was just dealing with the vampire's sickness itself. I'd hoped the series would end with some really big changes to the characters, but instead things mostly return to the way they were before the miniseries. That's not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself, but yeah, Marceline has become a vampire again, and Ice King is still Ice King. We did get a very sweet moment where Ice King motivates Marceline to stop moping around and fight back against the smoky Vampire King monster, which was some of the cutest and funniest moments in these last two episodes.
Did you just call me a cockroach, Simon?
What? No. No.
Thanks, buddy.
Yes.
It's really snuck up on me, but Ice King really isn't much of a villain anymore. He started out that way, yet the show has done a really great job humanizing him by revealing his backstory. Now he considers Finn, Jake, and Marceline to be his friends. Hopefully this eventually leads to Simon returning, but maybe that's more of a series finale type deal. This episode also probably adds plenty of fire to the Marceline and PB ship. There were just quite a few blushing moments here or there. I'm still not leaning either way when it comes to this particular ship. It'll probably end up being similar to how I felt about Korra and Asami being a couple. Speaking of Korra, I was getting a real Avatar vibe when Marceline pretty much goes all Sailor Moon to defeat the monster. Also, what's up with that heart mouth thing? It was really creepy. It seemed kind of Deus Ex, but it's still flippin' cool. Okay, there was at least one big change that came about because of the Stakes miniseries, and that was the Princess King of Ooo, who ends up being melted and having the throne stolen by Crunchy. That's not going to last long, as PB is immediately going to go and steal the throne from him, but still, it's actually interesting that the King of Ooo didn't even remain king for the remainder of the season. To be honest, I don't think he really added much of anything to the show anymore. It was interesting for a few episodes, but I'm glad he's gone. But he is shown sleeking off, so he might return. I hope not. All in all, I'm sad that Marceline is a vampire again. I think it would have really shooken things up a bit with a human demon Marceline walking around again. But at the very least, she does admit to being grown up now, so I look forward to more episodes featuring her. After 8 episodes, I don't expect that to happen anytime soon, though. So, what did you think of the Stakes miniseries as a whole? Was it fun learning more about Marceline, or did you feel like we didn't get as much information as you would have liked? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you soon.